I'm Tesara Iddamalgoda. I'm just going to take you through what we're going to go through for these 60 minutes. First, I'm going to give you guys an introduction. Then I'm going to take you through Instagram versus YouTube, the difference. This presentation is going to be how to transition from Instagram to YouTube. Then I'm going to go into Instagram versus YouTube, and then I'm going to go into how to transition. Then I'm going to talk about how to manage different social media platforms. I'm going to give some tips based off of my learnings and some of the mistakes I've made and how I've learned from those. Then we're going to do a little wrap up and just the key takeaways from all the points discussed, and then Q&A. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction, I am a content creator. I also run a creative agency called Creates, which started in June of this year. Prior to this, I studied banking and financial management at Monash University, and then I worked as a business analyst for a year and a half, and then I left my job to pursue content creation full time. So right now, I am an Instagrammer, YouTuber, and a TikToker. And I got onto YouTube from having Instagram and TikTok for about 2 years, early this year, in around April. Today, I have around 22,000 subscribers, and I have posted around 20 YouTube videos. So I'm going to talk about transitioning from doing predominantly short form content into moving into long form content. For me personally, the switch was from English content to Sinhala content, and the audience was also completely different. So I'm going to touch on all of those points. Um, if I can just share my screen again to show you, just to go through some of the key differences between Instagram and YouTube. So a lot of you know Instagram and YouTube, the differences. I don't have to go into detail, but if I can just highlight the main things, the things that are like noteworthy is obviously that Instagram is a social media platform and YouTube is a video streaming platform. So with Instagram, you can text, you can talk to people. There's a lot more personal engagement. There's a lot more like you can have groups, you can have there are DMs, all of that. You can chat, so it's a social media platform, whereas YouTube is a video streaming platform. So YouTube is also close to platforms like Netflix and stuff, whereas Instagram is solely a social media platform. In terms of content type, everybody kind of understands, but there has been a shift now that YouTube also does or also allows short form content. So that's something to note. Aspect ratio, we know about that. Product quality, there's also been a shift there. I think now the quality is kind of coming to, it's almost becoming equal, but YouTube allows much more high resolution content. So that's one key difference. But with YouTube Shorts, now literally anybody and everybody can earn YouTube revenue and grow following on YouTube. In terms of monetization, that's a key difference, and it's something that is important to creators like us. In terms of monetization, on Instagram, you earn predominantly through sponsored ads and brand promotions where brands pay you. And in terms of monetization with YouTube, you can earn through brands promoting you and through brands featuring on your videos, but mostly through YouTube revenue. Actually, it depends on the creator, but YouTube in itself will pay you based on like ad playthroughs. In terms of the algorithm, the Instagram and YouTube algorithm are similar but also different. In terms of the Instagram algorithm, it keeps changing quite often, but mostly people that see your videos are your own audience. And then if your video is good enough, or if your content piece is good enough, it will show on an explore feed. With YouTube, you are featured among other similar creators, and YouTube pushes out your video depending on how well your video is doing on someone's homepage. Um, that's kind of what the difference is. What's similar is that your own audience will see your video as well, but with YouTube, the homepage kind of just carry your video forward. Posting frequency, I would say, is also coming to a very, like, they're both very even now because of YouTube Shorts. But with the longer form content, I guess the posting frequency is relatively lower than with Instagram because you're asking your followers for a longer period of time. If you go into transitioning, so that was Instagram versus YouTube. Then if we go into transitioning from Instagram to YouTube, I'm going to go through some of these questions. Does it help to be fluent with Instagram content creation when you're getting on YouTube? So, does it help to have to be fluent with Instagram content creation when you get started on YouTube? I would say yes and no. Yes, because it's good to have a background in video editing, and Instagram sometimes gives you that. There are some people that rely heavily on statics, but mostly for your Instagram to do well, you have to do reels as well. So, to have a background in video editing, it helps. However, creating long form content for YouTube is completely different to any type of short form content. You're essentially asking your audience for me, out of a 20-minute video, like 6 to 7 minutes is my average watch time. And to ask someone to stay and watch only your content for 6 to 7 minutes, you kind of have to take a completely different approach than you would with Instagram. So I think the strategies in terms of creating content is completely different, and it's a learning curve switching from Instagram to YouTube. But if you do have what it takes to grow a following on another social media platform, it's most likely that you can translate that into a different social media platform easily. It's just that there are certain things that we need to recognize as differences, and we'll go into those. So this is what I just went through. The format and structure for long form content is completely different. The second question is the audience similar? Yes and no. In terms of demographics, likes, and gender and stuff like that, your audience could be similar because it's the same types of people mostly that would like your content. I would say no because the YouTube audience is completely different. I would say no because the YouTube audience is completely different to the Instagram audience, mostly because YouTube audience engagement is much higher. And for YouTube, these are people that enjoy watching long form content. Sometimes the people that scroll on TikTok aren't always the people that enjoy long form content. So there are distinctions between these two types of viewers, and they do require a deeper level of engagement. So sometimes with Instagram, you can do with a video that's not very, you can do with a very, like a very basic video. But with YouTube, there's a clear distinction between your brand and someone else's brand because the retention, like the time you need to retain them for, is much longer. So, it's like sometimes with Instagram, you can make a random video by using a random template off of CapCut or by replicating someone else's video, and that could do well. With YouTube, you can still do that, but it's slightly more difficult because obviously the audience engagement, these audiences engage in a much deeper level. Next one. So for transitioning from um, Instagram to YouTube, the next question is how similar is the content? I kind of went over this when I answered the first question, whether it helps having an Instagram, having the ability to perform on Instagram, whether that translates onto YouTube. I kind of covered that, but just to go over it a little bit, to have an audience engage for a longer period of time, you do have to take a different approach. So the same approach can't be taken on both channels, which is on both social media platforms, which is something that you should note. Instagram to YouTube, I'm just going to keep the screen on for this one because of the stats. Does having an audience on Instagram mean you can easily grow an audience on YouTube? So I actually thought that my Instagram was pushing my YouTube, but that was a mistake on my end, or I didn't know actually. When I checked the stats only, I found out that this part here, which says how viewers find this video, um, the part which says external, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is the seventh one under the components. External is basically how they come from your other social media platforms onto your YouTube. So obviously, out of that 0.6%, 63% is from Instagram. But what's scary is that even though I'm posting my YouTube links on my Instagram, that's just it's not even 1% of the audience that's watching my YouTube. It might be the same audience coming on YouTube and watching, but there's no direct correlation between me sharing and posting. So even though like around 18,000 people see my Instagram story, those are the story views in itself are not translating into YouTube views. So it doesn't mean you can easily grow an audience on YouTube. It does obviously mean that people know of you, and that kind of helps, but there's no like direct correlation saying that your YouTube will get views just because your Instagram gets views. Then we're going to go through the time commitment and earning. And I'm just going to pop the screen share. So in terms of time commitment, for me, I think personally, I when I was working a 9 to 5, um, I used to film content on Saturday and I would edit on Sunday. So Saturday also I didn't want to spend the whole day filming. So I would bulk film content in the morning, and I would plan like my outfits. I would take everything with me and go to one or two locations and finish filming everything. If I had brand content, I'd go to like, let's say, first shop, then second shop, and then restaurant or whatever, and finish everything in one day. So I think that if you have a proper plan, and you have like a filming day, so you do your hair, you do your makeup, everything, and you properly sit down and film. I think with Instagram or any type of short form content, you can cover it in 3 to 5 hours, depending on how frequently you post. I think with Instagram, the maximum you can post really is every other day, because you need to kind of give your video some time to gain some traction. I've seen that when I post a video immediately the next day, that the video that I posted the previous day doesn't have enough time to reach the audience because it gets pushed down on the algorithm. So giving your video around 48 hours, 36 to 48 hours, really helps push it forward. Um, um, I would say that 3 to 5 hours is adequate to create short form content and to take statics and stuff. But with YouTube, it's different. To create a 20-minute video that's action packed and to have all 20 minutes be like really heavy as a lifestyle content creator, I feel like you need to film yourself for at least 1 to 2 days. There are different forms of YouTube that you can obviously sit down and film in an hour or two and edit, but I still think that even for that, there's a lot of research and preparation required, and the script writing is relatively more difficult because there's a lot more like research and a lot more like data that needs to be pushed out in those few minutes. So I think that with long form content, you do require a lot of time, and I've seen it take from 15 to 20 hours a week for YouTube content. If I'm speaking about myself only as a lifestyle content creator, I would say it's safe to say around 15 hours with editing. So the time commitment is much higher with long form content, but that recently have been a lot of YouTubers grow by only posting short form content. That personally, for me, I haven't done that because I wanted to switch into long form content. So you can do YouTube and post shorts only and still like do it well now, if that's what you're going for. But I did want to engage with an audience on a deeper level and kind of move into a completely different target market, which was the mass um, market in Sri Lanka, which I hadn't tapped into, which is why I moved into longer form content. So in terms of time commitment, you can't even compare, is what I'm trying to say. And then the last question on transitioning from Instagram to YouTube is how to earn. It's a completely different ball game, of course, because sometimes even if you have a really long video, and your video is not good, you might not earn as much because people won't be on the video for long enough, and your like average watch time won't be long enough to generate enough like ad playthroughs. So it's a completely different ball game learning how to earn on YouTube versus learning how to earn on Instagram. For me, optimizing my earnings on Instagram comes with um, creating really good content for brands and then having as many brands approach you, and you are able to like up your prices, and then you take, let's say, you have a maximum amount of ads you can post per week, and you have a maximum amount of ads you can post per month. the only way you can really earn higher and higher is if you create value for those brands and you're able to charge a higher price, because after a certain point you can't post anymore. So right now I'm posting the most ads I can post. So if I'm thinking about growing my revenue from this point onwards, it's really difficult because I can't post anymore. People are going to get sick of me. So the only way I can really increase my revenue on Instagram is by creating more value. But there's only so far you can go. Like maybe I can charge 10,000 more, maybe I can charge 20,000 more. But with the audience that we're limited to with Sri Lanka and me being a niche content creator on Instagram, it's really difficult for me to increase my earnings from Instagram, more difficult than with YouTube, which is why I switched into catering to a more mass audience on YouTube. With YouTube, you earn money through the ads that play on your video, and that's a learning curve in itself. So, taking a completely different approach in how you're going to optimize um, your revenue on both of the platforms, you kind of have to like learn how to do that separately. Yeah. Okay, so that was the third segment. Let me go back into. Okay. So we did Instagram versus YouTube. We did Instagram to YouTube. Now we're going to go into Instagram and YouTube. And I'm going to go into this talking about the content game. The main things I'm going to talk about is why should you move into different content spaces? And two, why should you utilize these platforms together? The first thing for me was you need to kind of understand what this is for you, what is creating content for you. Um, for me, creating content became my entire livelihood. So it could not just be a side thing. With doing only Instagram or with doing only TikTok, you can sustain that if you have another source of income, or if you're doing like a 9 to 5, or you have another job or another business, and your social media is just something that adds to your income. But if you're only doing social media, you have to think about diversifying your income. And one way to do that is through different platforms. Then increasing your income in a more effective way. So, like I was saying earlier, instead of doing, let's say, two videos for two brands, it's more effective if you can make one video for a brand and feature it on different platforms in different ways, using different creative elements, and then charging those brands a package rate. So, ideally, what you could do is you're spending that one day creating content, but if you build a format and build a plan where you basically film portrait, you film landscape, the same content that you're filming, you're going to the same place, you can kind of in a more effective way increase your revenue. Another thing you can do is you can cross feature these brands. So if I'm doing a video for Instagram, I will cross feature the brands almost organically on YouTube, and I will charge them a premium saying that I am featuring them on YouTube and this is the additional audience that they're going to get or they're going to reach, because my audience on YouTube is completely different to my audience on Instagram, and my audience on Instagram is completely different to my audience on TikTok. So, to a very big extent, this brand is exposed, whether I charge them or not. In the beginning, I wasn't even charging them, and they were exposed to three different types of audiences. And later on, I kind of realized that I could charge brands um, higher by featuring them on all three platforms. So, that's another thing. Being competitive to maintain your audience. Obviously, what has happened is, I'm just going to stop the screen share. Obviously, what has happened is that there are so many content creators now. They are almost always seeing somebody new pop up. And if you're only going to be on Instagram, you're kind of not taking up space on the other content platforms, which does make you less competitive. I have definitely realized that showing up on TikTok, even if it's just once a week or twice a week, it really helps me with the younger audience. I don't have to post every day, but just being there on TikTok really helps me still connect with the younger audience because now I'm 25 and my audience is a little bit older. So to be top of mind with your audience, it's important to kind of really leverage all of the social media platforms. Is something that you do full time. And the last thing is to be able to add value for brands. I think that understanding different content platforms really helps you with the content that you create, and that helps you add value to the brands that you work with. Let's go into some tips from the mistakes that I made. So, one thing that I tried to do when I first started was I tried to create content that everyone else was creating. I tried to create this like similar type of content to what I saw other people that other content that was doing well. And then I realized that as a lifestyle content creator, you can't do that for the most part, especially with YouTube, because if you're copying someone else's content, the likelihood that your content is original is going to be very less because you're trying to be something that you're not, and then that does not translate in the content, like well in the content. It doesn't necessarily, it's difficult to connect with your audience over a long period of time if as a lifestyle content creator you're constantly trying to copy someone else's content. So there's a lot of content on the internet, there's a lot of content that's good, but as a lifestyle content creator, your USP is literally you. So even if it's some things that you are not very proud of with yourself, it's still those things that make you unique. And I think that like that vulnerability and that authenticity and that originality is something that you really need to leverage. Having said that, choosing to become a lifestyle content creator is a whole other decision in itself. It's so much more difficult because you kind of like share a piece of you in every single piece of content, which can be extremely exhausting, but it's also as rewarding. So there's like with everything in life, there's obviously pros and cons. Being a lifestyle content creator is super rewarding for somebody that can handle it, for somebody that can handle that level of social interaction, for somebody that can handle that level of publicity, that level of openness, that level of vulnerability. It is a very rewarding thing because for me, I've realized that on Instagram, people wouldn't necessarily, people connected with me, but not as much as after I started YouTube. After I started YouTube, I've been able to connect with people so much and in a way that I can actually kind of help people and share like my purpose in creating content and being vulnerable and being authentic. So I think you can create content that genuinely makes a difference because you have more time with people, if that makes sense. If you take Instagram or TikTok, like people probably watch up to, like I saw this statistic that says that people watch 50 to 200 videos a day, like short form videos. And to for one of those videos to stand out is really difficult. So with long form content, you can make a bigger impact on people's lives because you have that undivided time and attention for 5 to 6 minutes, 6 to 7 minutes, sometimes even 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You can make a bigger impact on people's lives. It's just that to do that, you really need to be yourself and be true to yourself, almost like if you were having a conversation with a friend. So, um, A would be picking what type of content creator you want to be on YouTube. And if you're like me and you do choose to be a lifestyle content creator, your unique selling point is you. So to kind of really bring that out as if you were with your family or with your friends or something along those lines. The second one is I just remembered it. We don't have to go back to the slideshow. It's actually doing it in a way that's more sustainable. So for me as a lifestyle content creator on Instagram and YouTube, um, there needs to be a balance. Obviously, a lot of bloggers that we've seen do really well on YouTube. They kind of get their content gets they exhaust themselves by constantly trying to be show their lives in front of the camera. So I think doing it in a way that's sustainable for you, because a lot of our favorite content creators, maybe 2 to 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, they aren't able to continue because your life has ups and downs. highs and lows, and showing all of that on the internet obviously has its has its cons. Um, I feel like doing it in a way where you're sharing your life, but you're not sharing your entire life, or you're sharing a certain part of your life, or you have, let's say, one day of the week where you film, and then day of the week where you edit, instead of filming your entire week. Finding a part of your life, like maybe cooking, or finding a segment of your life that you want to share with an audience. For some people, it might be sustainable to share your entire life, but I'm kind of going through a little bit of a learning curve where I'm trying to figure out exactly what type of content I want to be showing on YouTube, because it's a really tricky place to play being a lifestyle content creator. And it can get very exhausting. So to find um, types of content that's more sustainable really helps for you to maintain consistency. The third mistake that I made was to make sure that you have support or that you allocate time. If you are doing Instagram, YouTube, TikTok full time, and more so if you are doing social media while having another job, to always, even though we are as lifestyle content creators, we are the content that we make. It doesn't mean that we have to do everything. The previous speaker spoke about outsourcing, and it is increasingly difficult to outsource when you are a lifestyle content creator. But there's always a way to cut down the work that you yourself have to do. Planning obviously helps a lot. Having somebody who understands your style of content helps a lot. Finding someone with a similar editing style as you, there might be, it might take a lot more work, but there are ways to kind of get more support, because I think what a lot of people in Sri Lanka don't have is that. And it's good that, like, obviously, um, workshops like this are teaching people how to get support and get help from other people and other organizations. But even if it's to pay somebody to edit your video, if that's something you need to do to grow your channel, I think it's important that we consider all of those as investments, because these are areas that you can really earn money. These are areas where you can, like, create your own art in a way. It's just a new way of creating art, and I think that's something that we need to recognize. So with something else, people won't be scared to make an investment. They'll be like, okay, let's make this investment because it's for a business. But these are also, I think, it's important that we see these also as businesses and our personal brands, and that we should not be stingy and we should invest in ourselves, because that's something that I didn't do, and it was impossible for me to run a creative agency, make one long form content, make like 6 to 7 pieces of Instagram content, out of which 3 to 4 will be brand content a week. There's just really not enough time in a week. So getting support is really important. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the creating a format that's sustainable. And also in the next point, which we'll go into, which is maintaining consistency. This has also been something that I've struggled with, but I think with YouTube, with all social media platforms, consistency is very important. But I think the YouTube algorithm kind of really prioritizes consistency. On Instagram, sometimes the more you post, the less reach you get. On an individual post, which I've seen, your average reach falls when you post more often. Whereas if you posted every 3 days, your average reach would be higher, obviously, because that piece of content would have more time to push forward, and your entire audience will be focused on that piece of content. So with different platforms that prioritize consistency differently, I think with YouTube, especially, consistency is important, and that's something that I really struggled with. So to do well on YouTube, I think it's important to be consistent. Um, Piggybacking on trends and creating content for you or for your audience, creating value and not just content. That's what I'm going to go through now. So piggybacking on trends, as a lifestyle content creator, you kind of forget that you can piggyback on trends. That trends really give your content a push when it comes to the algorithm, using keywords, talking about key topics, connecting your content to key topics. I think you kind of get so engrossed in sharing your life that you forget that you can make use of like the trends that's ongoing or the trends that are currently like popular on that social media platform. That's something that I've failed to do in the past few months. Um, your life can only be so interesting. So in times where it's not, it could be really helpful to piggyback on trends, use keywords. If there's something that's that everyone's talking about, to kind of connect your content to that in some way or form could be really helpful. Um, the one before the last one is creating content for you or creating content for your audience. Mm, with your content being like so personal to you and being a form of like art. And for me, when I edit a video, I genuinely feel like it's art and I feel like it's like an extension of me. And I always watch the video and I think like, oh my gosh, I love to watch this video. But I think something that we fail to realize is that there are so many different types of people watching our video when we try to reach such a big audience. And sometimes the sophistication that you require to watch your own video, others don't require, because it takes a lot for people to understand you and not as much for you to understand yourself. So you tend to make this very complex, very sophisticated video that really connects with you. Whereas you need to kind of realize that you're not creating content for you, you're creating content for this big audience, which consists of so many different types of people, so many different age groups, so many different backgrounds, so many different lifestyles. And sometimes making your content more generic, more relatable, and not as personal to you kind of helps. I'm not sure if this is the case with everyone, but I do think that mostly when you're trying to grow into a really big audience, being less niche and less about you kind of helps. So I think for me, I needed to get out of the mindset where I'm creating this piece of content for myself. Where like I used to do my thumbnails for myself. Like I used to be like, oh, I really like this thumbnail. It looks so nice. But if it's not going to make somebody click it, if it's not going to compete against the rest of the thumbnails on YouTube, and if it's not going to reach the audience that I'm trying to reach, then there's no point in you looking at the thumbnail and waiting and being like, it's nice. So I think that was like a really hard like pill to swallow with my YouTube content, because I forgot that I'm not making this video for myself. So catering to the audience and not to you is a really important thing to remember when you're making videos for YouTube. And the last one is creating value and not just content. So sometimes like I will film maybe 2 days of content, but really nothing there, like nothing of value. It's just me, and sometimes you'd think that people would like to watch that, but it doesn't it doesn't do what you need it to do, because you're not really connecting with people. And sometimes that happens to me when I'm not having the best day, when I'm not connecting with myself, when I'm not like self-aware. And the issue there is that people are watching your content to feel some sort of way, or to learn some sort of something, or to be relaxed, or to feel stress free. So for me, I've realized a lot of people come and watch my content because they want to like relax a bit, and then like it's engagement, but it's also like something stress free. So when I am not in a good place, I find it difficult to give that to people. And you, if it's not that, I've realized it can be me adding value in a different way. Maybe teaching people something that I've learned, maybe something regarding content, maybe something regarding something that I am really obsessed with is eating clean, and like navigating through changing, like learning how to eat clean, even things like that, even if it's something small, creating value in some way or form, I think it really helps. And sometimes we wonder, like, why is our content not doing well? We're making content, we're literally filming everything, and it's not translating, it's not getting views. It's because we're not adding any value. So I think we need to remember that as much as we create content, our content also needs to be valuable to someone, and someone needs to have a reason to watch it. That's also a really difficult thing to realize. You need to probably ask a lot of other people what they think about your content, or send it to somebody before you post it and say, like, would you watch this? And really listen to them when they tell you the truth. When you're a lifestyle content creator, because it can be difficult because you're making the content of yourself and someone's necessarily telling you that you're not as interesting. But it's, if you're doing it as a business and you're running it like that, you kind of have to think of it like that. So it's important to really add value, and give people a reason to watch your content. So I think that's the last of my tips. I, we're going into the last bit, which are the key takeaways. Um, I would say the main thing is to have a separate strategy for both. If I took forward the same approach that I had for Instagram onto YouTube, I think I would have failed miserably, because I was a very Colombo-based niche English speaking audience. I had that type of audience, and my audience only really went as far as maybe Candy and Goal. But with my YouTube, I realized I actually have a like a much broader audience in terms of like location, because of the Sinhala content. And that's really helped me grow into a new target market. And it's helped my Instagram a lot as well. It's helped me grow my Instagram, it's helped me grow my TikTok. Um, it's just helped me, it's given me the push that I needed, because I was in a very stagnant place. But if I took the same approach that I did with my Instagram and tried to bring that to YouTube, it wouldn't have served any purpose. And also, it wouldn't have done any good for my personal brand on the whole. Um, the second thing is, I think for somebody who is doing, like, listening to this workshop, or this session, I think you're probably looking at this in a way that you can earn money. And especially if you're starting out, I think it's really important that you diversify your income, because for me, TikTok really helped me to grow my Instagram. I might not earn as much money on TikTok, but it does help me in terms of traction, in terms of pushing my content out to a new audience, in terms of staying on top of mind. And it might not be the most profitable platform for you, but to still have all three, it does more than you think it does. And you kind of learn that as you look into your statistics more and more. For example, with my Instagram, I do get a lot of people coming onto my Instagram from my TikTok, because TikTok, you always show up on some random person's feed. You always show up on the For You page. Sometimes, even if you're not making videos during that week, your last week's video is still performing, and somebody who has never seen you before, they'll see your TikTok. Whereas with Instagram, that happens less, because maybe one or two videos will go on the explore feed, but majority are your own followers who see your videos on Instagram. So having those different platforms really help you, and you will diversify your income. Even if it's not the most profitable platform, you still should prioritize it, is what I'm trying to say. If you are a full-time content creator, it might be good to leverage both platforms differently. Um, I think that if there's something that I've learned, it's good that I'm more niche on Instagram and more mass on YouTube, because that helps me almost do two completely different things on both platforms, and that does help in terms of reaching a bigger target audience. Maintain a good balance and even better consistency. in terms of a good balance, I would say um, to kind of have a more sustainable, more realistic schedule with Instagram, same for TikTok, and then for YouTube, to kind of cater your content posting schedule to your life and what you are able to do. Find a good balance as to how you're going to manage all three or four if you have Facebook, um, how you're going to find a good balance to prioritize all of them, and also how you're going to um, prioritize brand content amongst all of that as well. So maintaining a good balance is important, and maintaining consistency on all platforms is important as well. Trial and error. Um, for a lifestyle content creator, trial and error is it never ends. You always have to try, and you always have to fix those mistakes if you've made any, and always change your content, because with trends, with you changing as a person, with the platforms changing, with the algorithms changing, you constantly have to keep working on your craft and keep developing the type of content that you make. Your content is your art, and what works for me won't always work for you. There could be a few takeaways that you can take from this to kind of learn how that works for you. If I have any advice, it would be to take these points and learn how they fit into your content and your brand, your life, not lifestyle, but your type of content. Like if you're a food content creator, if you make educational content, just to take these points and see how they translate for you. Um, Even though something might work for someone else, doesn't mean that that will always work for you. And what I've seen with these things is sometimes doing what everybody else doesn't do really helps, because really helps you get that edge on YouTube, even Instagram. Doing things completely differently, using the same format, but doing things in a different way does help. So as much as you like watch other people and learn from other people, the most important thing, and which has helped me so much, is to just be myself and be not try to be different, but bring out those differences by being like really true to yourself. Genuinely helps your content reach an audience.